Why do 80% of horror stories start with a creepy apartment? Is it the isolation, the anonymity, or the sense of being surrounded by strangers? Maybe it's the idea that behind every door, there could be a story more terrifying than the last. Apartments have a way of holding on to the energy of their past inhabitants, and sometimes that energy is far from benign. Let's find out with apartment 1301. This particular apartment had a reputation. Neighbors whispered about it, and the building's maintenance staff avoided it. The door, with its tarnished number, seemed to hold secrets of its own. It was as if the very wood had absorbed the fear and despair of those who had lived there before. As I stepped into apartment 1301, a chill ran down my spine. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the dim light from the hallway barely penetrated the darkness inside. The apartment felt like it was waiting, watching. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like a whisper, and the shadows seemed to move just out of the corner of my eye. The rent was suspiciously low. In a city where affordable housing was a myth, this place was a steal. Or so I thought. The ad had promised a cozy one-bedroom apartment with all utilities included, but the price made me wonder what the catch was. Little did I know the true cost of living here was far greater than money. The landlord's smile seemed forced. His eyes darted around nervously as he handed me the keys. "You'll love it here," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. It was as if he was trying to convince himself more than me. There was something unsettling about his demeanor, something that hinted at a truth he wasn't sharing. But I needed a place. Desperation can make you overlook the warning signs. I convinced myself that I was being paranoid, that the unease I felt was just nerves. After all, moving to a new place is always stressful. I took the keys, thanked the landlord, and tried to ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. The first night, I heard whispers. They were faint, almost imperceptible, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. At first, I thought it was just the old building settling, or maybe the neighbors. But as the night wore on, the whispers grew more distinct. They seemed to be coming from the walls, the floor, the very air around me. "Get out while you still can." The words were clear, urgent. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. Was it a dream? A trick of the mind? I tried to rationalize it, but the fear was real. I could feel it in my bones. The apartment was trying to tell me something, but I wasn't ready to listen. I dismissed it as the wind. I had to. The alternative was too terrifying to consider. I told myself that old buildings make noise, that my imagination was running wild. I closed my eyes and forced myself to sleep, hoping that the morning light would chase away the shadows. The second night, I saw shadows, dancing on the walls. They moved with a life of their own, twisting and contorting into shapes that defied explanation. I watched, frozen in my bed, as the shadows seemed to reach out towards me. It was as if they were trying to pull me into their dark embrace. I tried to ignore them. I squeezed my eyes shut, telling myself that it was just a trick of the light. But the darkness behind my eyelids was no refuge. I could still feel the presence of the shadows, lurking, waiting. Sleep was a distant hope, and the night stretched on endlessly. The third night, I found a journal, hidden in the closet, a previous tenant's writings. "They're coming for me." The pages were filled with frantic, disjointed entries, descriptions of whispers, shadows, and a growing sense of dread. The final entry was a desperate plea for help, a warning to anyone who might find the journal. It was clear that the tenant had been driven to the brink of madness. "I hear them in the vents." The journal's words echoed in my mind as I listened to the faint sounds coming from the air ducts. It was as if something was crawling through the walls, searching for a way in. The thought of unseen eyes watching me from the darkness was almost too much to bear. I see them in the mirrors. Every reflective surface seemed to hold a glimpse of another world, a world where shadows had form and whispers had voices. The faces that appeared were twisted, tormented, as if they were trapped between this world and the next. I couldn't escape their gaze, no matter where I turned. Suddenly the whispers grew louder. The shadows coalesced. I saw faces in the mirrors. They were no longer just fleeting glimpses. They were clear, distinct, and filled with a malevolent intent. The faces seemed to be trying to communicate, their mouths moving soundlessly. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and I spun around, but there was no one there. In the vents. Everywhere. I tried to flee. Panic set in as I realized that the apartment was alive, that it was feeding off my fear. I ran to the door, but it wouldn't open. The windows were sealed shut, and no matter how hard I pounded on them, they wouldn't budge. I was trapped, a prisoner in my own home, but the doors were sealed. The windows wouldn't budge. Trapped, I screamed. The whispers stopped. The shadows vanished. Silence. Then the landlord's voice. "Welcome to apartment 1301. You'll never leave." His words echoed in the empty apartment, a chilling reminder that I was not alone. The apartment had claimed another victim, and there was no escape.